The great chamber of the Galactic Senate was vast, its towering walls covered in holographic displays of star systems and trade routes. Representatives of hundreds of species sat in their designated seats, their eyes, some organic, some artificial, focused on the lone delegation standing at the center. The human ambassador, Elias Carter, took a deep breath before speaking. He had rehearsed this speech 100 times, but now that he was here, standing before the most powerful rulers in the galaxy, the weight of Earth's survival pressed down on him like a mountain. Honorable members of the Senate, Elias began, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. I come before you not as a rival, not as a conqueror, but as a desperate man pleading for his people. Earth is in danger. We are under attack. An unknown force has begun striking our outer colonies, destroying settlements and slaughtering innocents. We have tried to fight back, but we lack the technology, the fleet, the power to hold our ground. We ask for your aid, not for conquest, not for resources, simply for survival. There was silence for a moment. Then, a murmur spread through the chamber, hushed voices whispering in 100 different languages. Finally, a Xenar delegate, a tall reptilian being with golden scales and piercing black eyes, stood and addressed Elias. His voice was smooth, yet cold. Survival. The Xenar's lips curled in what passed for amusement. You humans have always been reckless, expanding into the void without thought, without caution. Now you come crawling to us for help. Tell me, Carter, why should the great empires of the galaxy care for your plight? Elias clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. He had expected resistance, but the sheer indifference in their voices filled him with frustration. Still, he kept his voice calm. Because it is not just humanity at risk. Whoever is attacking us may not stop with Earth. If we fall, they may come for you next. A laugh echoed through the chamber, deep and guttural. A Krillix warlord, his armored body covered in ceremonial scars, leaned forward. Humans, always thinking they are the center of the universe. Your enemies are your own problem. Do not expect us to fight your battles. Elias glanced at the other delegates, searching for any sign of sympathy. A few looked uneasy, some whispered amongst themselves, but most wore the same expression of indifference. He turned to the Senate speaker, a being of pure energy contained within a floating exosuit. We have always followed your laws, Elias pressed. We have traded fairly, upheld peace, honored our agreements. Does that mean nothing? Will you truly stand aside and watch an entire species be wiped out? The speaker's voice was emotionless, synthetic. The affairs of individual worlds do not dictate the actions of the Senate. If your kind cannot defend itself, then it is simply the way of the universe. A cold realization settled in Elias's chest. This was not just rejection. This was abandonment. Earth was alone. His heart pounded as he took one last step forward, his voice no longer pleading but firm. Then remember this moment. Remember that when we asked for aid, you turned your backs on us. Remember it well. Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked out of the chamber. The murmurs grew louder behind him, but he ignored them. Every step he took felt heavier. The weight of an entire world now rested on his shoulders. Back on his ship, Elias's hands trembled as he sent the final transmission back to Earth. They refused. The Senate won't help us. We're on our own. There was silence for a moment before a reply came. The voice on the other end, the President of the United Earth Council, was quiet but resolute. Then we will stop asking. If the galaxy will not aid us, they will live to regret it. We will show them that humanity does not beg twice. As the transmission ended, Elias closed his eyes. The galaxy had made its choice. Now, it was humanity's turn. The fleet emerged from the void like silent ghosts, their hulls dark against the endless backdrop of space. Earth's outer colonies, once bustling hubs of trade and exploration, now stood vulnerable and exposed. The enemy had come, not to negotiate, not to threaten, but to destroy. On the surface of New Horizon, one of humanity's largest colonies, alarms blared through the city streets. Families rushed toward the emergency shelters, their faces filled with fear as the planetary defense forces scrambled into position. Governor Sarah Lorne stood at the command center, her hands gripping the edge of the console as she watched the enemy fleet descend. "How many ships?" she asked, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside her. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Drake, swallowed hard. 30 confirmed. Heavy cruisers, assault frigates, and... His voice faltered as the scanner updated. A dreadnought. A cold chill ran down Sarah's spine. A dreadnought. A warship capable of wiping out entire cities with a single barrage. There was no way the colony could withstand such firepower. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Maybe we can still..." Before she could finish, the first explosion shook the city. The enemy had fired without warning. Buildings crumbled under the impact, fire and smoke rising into the sky, the comms filled with screams of civilians caught in the destruction. The enemy had no intention of talking. Sarah gritted her teeth. Deploy all remaining defense drones. Redirect power to the planetary shields. Drake hesitated. "Governor, there are children in the lower districts. If the shields go up now..." Sarah closed her eyes for a brief second, forcing herself to make the call no leader should ever have to make. If they hesitated, they would all die. "Do it," she said. Now. The shields activated just as another wave of enemy fire rained down. Some of the blasts were deflected, but others struck the unprotected outskirts, turning homes into burning wreckage. Sarah felt sick, but she had no choice. In orbit, Earth's response fleet arrived. A dozen hastily retrofitted warships, once civilian freighters, now armed with whatever weapons humanity could build. Admiral Kane sat in the command chair of the UES Valiant, watching the enemy formation. He knew their ships were outdated. He knew their firepower was weaker, but surrender was never an option. "This is Admiral Kane of the United Earth Fleet," he transmitted to the enemy. "You have attacked our people without provocation. Withdraw now, or face the consequences." The response came in the form of energy blasts tearing through one of the Earth ships. The Endeavor exploded in a fiery bloom, taking hundreds of human lives with it. Kane's hands clenched into fists. "So be it. All ships, fire at will." The void erupted into chaos. Human warships weaved between the enemy fleet, striking from unexpected angles, using their smaller size to outmaneuver the dreadnought's massive guns. But the enemy had numbers, and they had power. One by one, Earth's ships began to fall. On the surface, Sarah watched in horror as the battle unfolded above. She knew the truth. They were losing. Then, something unexpected happened. One of Earth's ships, the Resolute, damaged and barely holding together, accelerated straight toward the enemy dreadnought. "Captain Monroe, what are you doing?" Kane's voice rang through the comms. A battered face appeared on the screen, blood trickling down Monroe's forehead. "Buying you time, sir. Tell Earth, we won't go quietly." And then, the Resolute rammed into the dreadnought's main reactor. The explosion was blinding, consuming both ships in a fiery storm that sent shockwaves across the battlefield. The enemy fleet faltered. Kane saw his chance. "Now, hit them with everything we've got." Earth's forces, fueled by desperation and fury, struck back. The enemy, shocked by the sacrifice they had just witnessed, hesitated. And in that hesitation, humanity found its first victory. But as Sarah stared at the burning wreckage above, she knew one thing. This was only the beginning. The galaxy had ignored their pleas. Now they would know what it meant to push humanity too far. The stars above Earth burned with the wreckage of war. The remnants of the enemy fleet retreated into the void, leaving behind only debris and the bodies of the fallen. But there was no celebration on Earth, no cheers of victory. The cost had been too high. In the war room beneath the United Earth Council's headquarters, military leaders, and scientists gathered around a massive holographic display of the Sol system. President Alexander Graves stood at the center, his hands clasped behind his back, his face carved from stone. The loss of New Horizon was a wound that had yet to stop bleeding, but there was no time for mourning. The enemy had underestimated humanity once. They would not make the same mistake again. Admiral Kane, his uniform still scorched from battle, spoke first. "We bought ourselves time, but they'll be back. Stronger, in greater numbers. If we don't prepare now, next time, there won't be an Earth left to defend." A murmur of agreement spread through the room. Kane was right. The enemy had seen humanity's strength, but they had also seen their weakness, the lack of advanced weaponry, the reliance on outdated ships. The next battle wouldn't be a desperate defense. It would be annihilation. Dr. Evelyn Park, one of Earth's leading scientists, stepped forward. "We've been working on something," she said, "a last resort, in case diplomacy failed." She pressed a button, and the hologram shifted. A single ship appeared on the display, a sleek, angular design unlike anything humanity had ever built before. "We call it the Excalibur," she said, "a warship built with every piece of advanced technology we could salvage, reverse engineer, or create. It's faster, stronger, and more adaptable than anything in our fleet." Kane narrowed his eyes as he examined the specs. "This is experimental. How many do we have?" "Just one," Evelyn admitted. "But with the right crew, it could change everything." The room fell silent. One ship, against an empire. It sounded impossible. Graves finally spoke, his voice calm but unyielding. "Then we put everything we have into it. If the galaxy has chosen to abandon us, then we will make them regret it." The decision was made. The Excalibur would be humanity's answer. In a hidden shipyard beneath the surface of Mars, the final touches were being made. Engineers in exosuits worked around the clock, welding armor plating, calibrating weapons, fine-tuning the AI systems that would control the ship's adaptive combat protocols. Captain Adrian Hunt stood on the observation deck, watching his future unfold before him. He had fought in the colonies. He had seen friends die screaming in the cold vacuum of space, and he had sworn that humanity would never be helpless again. A voice interrupted his thoughts. "Beautiful, isn't she?" He turned to see Dr. Park walking up beside him, a tablet in her hands. "She's a monster," Hunt corrected. "And she's exactly what we need." Evelyn smiled. "Then let's make sure she's ready." The Excalibur would be more than a ship. It would be a message, a warning to the galaxy that humanity would not bow, would not break, would not beg. They had asked for help and had been ignored. Now, they would show the galaxy why that was a mistake. The Excalibur cut through the void like a phantom, its dark hull nearly invisible against the endless backdrop of space. It was a ship unlike any other, built in secrecy, designed for one purpose: war. Captain Adrian Hunt sat in the command chair, his gaze fixed on the swirling blue of the jump point ahead. His crew was small but handpicked. Veterans, engineers, pilots, each of them had lost someone in the war. Each of them carried the same fire in their hearts. The silence of the bridge was broken by Commander Sloan, his second in command. "Final systems check is complete. The Excalibur is operating at full capacity." Hunt nodded. "Then it's time." He turned to the communications officer. "Send the message." The officer hesitated for only a second before transmitting a single encrypted signal, coordinates, a warning, and a challenge. The enemy would receive it, and they would come. The crew braced themselves as the Excalibur jumped into the unknown. Across the void, in the enemy's stronghold, the War Council gathered. The supreme strategist of the Cathari Dominion, a being of chitin and cold logic, analyzed the intercepted transmission. "The humans dare provoke us," one of the generals hissed, mandibles clicking in frustration. The strategist remained still. "It is not a provocation. It is a trap." The room fell silent. The Ktheri had crushed countless civilizations before, but humanity was different. They had fought beyond reason, beyond survival, as if something deeper burned inside them. They seek revenge, the strategists said, and they believe they have the means to challenge us. The general scoffed. Then let them try. We will meet them in battle and wipe them from existence. The strategists' black eyes gleamed. Yes, but not on their terms. We will turn their trap against them. The Ktheri fleet mobilized. The Excalibur emerged in a desolate system, far from any major trade routes. It was the perfect battleground. Empty space, no collateral, no chance for innocent lives to be caught in the crossfire. Hunt stood on the bridge, watching the sensors. They took the bait, Sloan said grimly. The display lit up. Not just one enemy fleet, but three. The Ktheri had sent an armada. A lesser captain would have called for retreat. But Hunt only smiled. Perfect. He turned to his weapons officer. Let's show them what humanity has been building in the dark. The Excalibur roared to life. Missiles streaked through the void, bending mid-flight, adjusting to enemy defenses with an intelligence no Ktheri ship had ever faced. Railguns fired with pinpoint precision, tearing through armor like paper. The ship moved in ways that defied expectation, using artificial gravity shifts to pivot faster than any capital ship had a right to. The enemy responded with overwhelming force. Plasma lances cut through space, targeting weak points that weren't there. Fighters swarmed, but the Excalibur's automated defenses tracked and eliminated them with terrifying efficiency. One by one, enemy ships began to falter. But the Ktheri were not fools. They adapted. A battlecruiser flanked from the side, unleashing a barrage of concentrated fire. The Excalibur's shields flared, energy draining rapidly. Shields at 40%. Sloan shouted. Hunt gritted his teeth. Time to test the override. Dr. Park, monitoring from the tactical station, took a deep breath and activated the failsafe. The Excalibur's AI reconfigured the ship's power grid in real time, diverting energy in unpredictable patterns. Weapon systems surged with power, and the ship vanished for a split second, blinking out of existence before reappearing behind the enemy's flagship. The crew of the Ktheri warship barely had time to react before a kinetic round, the size of a car, tore through their command center. The ship detonated in a violent cascade of fire and debris. The battle shifted. The Excalibur moved like a nightmare, an executioner dancing through the void. Enemy ships faltered, their formations crumbling. And then, silence. The armada had been reduced to wreckage. The Excalibur remained. Hunt exhaled, the weight of the moment sinking in. The enemy had been given their first real defeat. But this was just the beginning. Send another message, Hunt ordered. Sloan raised an eyebrow. What do we tell them? Hunt's voice was cold, unwavering. We asked for help. They ignored us. Now we make sure they never forget humanity again. The aftermath of the battle hung in the void like a scar. The wreckage of the Ktheri fleet drifted, their once mighty warships reduced to floating tombs. Fires still burned in the husks of some vessels, their oxygen reserves leaking into space, a slow and silent death. But aboard the Excalibur, there was no celebration, only cold efficiency. The battle had been won, but the war had only begun. Captain Adrian Hunt sat in the command chair, his hands resting on the armrests, his gaze locked onto the tactical display. The enemy was reeling, but they wouldn't stay that way for long. They'll regroup, Commander Sloan said, standing beside him. They won't take this lightly. They don't have a choice, Hunt replied. They either admit defeat or throw everything they have at us. Dr. Evelyn Park adjusted her glasses as she studied the sensor readings. Based on their fleet movements, I'd say they're choosing the second option. She zoomed in on a set of incoming signals. I'm picking up a massive deployment from the Ktheri home system. They're sending everything. The bridge fell silent. No one had expected them to retreat, but this was beyond escalation. Sloan let out a slow breath. If that's their main war fleet, we're talking hundreds of ships. Enough to wipe out Earth in a single assault. Hunt leaned forward. Then we don't let them reach Earth. Eyes turned toward him. Even the most battle-hardened crew members hesitated. One ship against an entire fleet. It sounded insane. Dr. Park, however, understood immediately. You want to take the fight to them, she said, before they can mobilize. Hunt nodded. We don't have the numbers for a drawn-out war. But what we do have is the Excalibur. We fight on our terms. We hit them before they're ready, before they can overwhelm us. Sloan exhaled sharply. That's a hell of a gamble. It's the only play we have, Hunt countered. There was no more debate. The decision had been made. The Excalibur jumped through deep space, heading toward the Catheri stronghold. It was suicide, on paper. But Hunt had something the enemy didn't expect. Human desperation, human ingenuity, and a ship built to break every rule of warfare. As they neared their destination, the ship's AI displayed the enemy formations. The Catheri fleet was gathering in orbit around their homeworld, fueling and repairing. They're not expecting an attack, Sloan said. They're preparing for an invasion, not an ambush. Good, Hunt said. We won't give them time to adjust. Dr. Park activated the ship's stealth field. It wasn't true invisibility, but it disrupted sensor readings just enough to buy them an approach. The Excalibur coasted into the system, slipping past the outer defenses unnoticed. Their target was clear: their fuel reserves, their command center, their shipyards. If they struck hard enough, the Catheri war machine would grind to a halt. As soon as they were in range, Hunt gave the order. Fire. The Excalibur unleashed devastation. Kinetic rounds traveling at near-light speeds tore through fuel depots, igniting massive explosions that cascaded through the station. Plasma beams lanced across the void, ripping through battleships before they could even power their weapons. Panic spread through the Catheri ranks. Ships scrambled to respond, but the Excalibur moved too fast, hitting them from every angle, slipping through their defenses like a ghost. The Catheri High Command, watching in horror from their central war room, realized too late that they had made a critical mistake. They had ignored Earth's pleas, and now humanity had come to make them suffer. But the battle wasn't over. A massive warship, the Catheri flagship, moved into position, its weapons locking onto the Excalibur. This ship was different, heavily armored, outfitted with experimental energy shielding, designed to withstand any known form of attack. The Catheri Supreme Strategist's voice boomed through an open channel. You cannot win this fight, human. Surrender, and we may spare what remains of your kind. Hunt stared at the screen, then smirked. Funny. I was about to say the same thing to you. The Excalibur surged forward. The final battle had begun. You said. The Excalibur raced through the void, its engines burning hot, as it closed the distance to the Catheri flagship. The enemy warship was a behemoth, a fortress of armor and firepower, built to withstand entire fleets. Against a single vessel, it should have been an easy victory. But the Catheri had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. The enemy's weapons came to life, plasma lances scorching the darkness, missiles locking onto their target. The Excalibur moved like no warship had the right to move, twisting through the barrage with impossible agility. Inside the ship, Captain Adrian Hunt held steady. Status: shields holding at 70%, Sloan reported. We won't last in a prolonged fight. We won't need to. Hunt turned to Dr. Park. Is the package ready? She nodded. We just need a clear shot. The package wasn't a missile or a railgun slug. It was something new, something